talk to y'all today about some of the things we were talking about yesterday, dealing with, the whistleblower. I got his name for you today. It's Eric Snowden, among other things, UFOs in Antarctica. It was something very interesting. I was watching a documentary yesterday on the Sci-Fi channel, and on Sci-Fi, they're speaking on the early expeditions into Antarctica. And one of the most interesting things I felt was that the Antarctic region wasn't a place of interest until after the Nazis had reached it. And if you really look back in history, that wasn't the first time someone has ventured off there, but it is the first time someone has found something. If we look in history towards the end of the First World War, and one of the most famous things that was noted and cited around that area was the fact that you kept seeing these German Nazi U-boats, and nobody could really figure out what these U-boats were doing there. And it wasn't until they tried to capture Hitler and Hitler's U-boat fled there that people really realized, hey, it may be something here. You know, with the rumors, and you have the supposed Arctic region being a frozen tundra, and no one ever knowing there were parts that were so you know which mainly I only see being the fact that a full disclosure of this type of information may have sent everyone into a mass hysteria, which I do. It controls people here in America, which is the dominant religion of Christianity. You know, it would destroy a lot, and the Judeo system that we built our principles on would crumble because a Judeo system would have no what's the word I'm looking for? It would have no credence over people who naturally are sovereign. You know, by nature you were created as an individual, and I think we forgot that. Through the religiosity of living in America and the dogmatic system. But today I'm here to talk to you about something very, very, very interesting. Besides the Nazi German scientists and the weather changing and all this stuff, is something very, very, very funny I found while digging through this information, right? And oh, shout out to my researchers. I have a few researchers out here now. Shout out to them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's a big shout out. And I'm just saying, these people keep me on point. You know what I mean? And I have friends out there who also put me on point about certain information or certain things. So, yes, I don't just do this on my own. Very interesting thing with Antarctica. Admirable. His acts were admirable, but Admiral Byrd, during the First World War, who actually flew to the true North Pole in the polar ice caps, was actually commissioned to also go to Antarctica. And the interesting thing about his trip to Antarctica was he actually flew past the Southern Pole. Now, what does this mean for us? It means he explored the fringes of the world. A lot of people, and I believe my flat earthers, are going to really enjoy this one. This is an alert for everyone. Uh, these my flat earthers, you're gonna love this. The flight expedition segment of his expedition came after they took a boat and went past the actual barriers and limits of Antarctica, and they seen the islands. They went around. They came to the other side of Antarctica where there was nothing but fresh ocean in front of them, they thought, or so they believed. And he sent all these planes out to go and fly over to see would they reach another continent. Now, here's where things get interesting. Apparently, 7 of his planes mysteriously, this is the word they use, mysteriously exploded. General Byrd himself described it as a barrier or a force field that they crashed into. Now, here's the thing. Past Antarctica is supposed to be the fringes of the Earth, and if the Earth was round, that water would continue to circulate the Earth, in which case they would have just flew, and the poles would have reversed, and they would have been back on the other side of the planet. That did not happen, ladies and gentlemen. This did not happen. And the fact they flew into a barrier, the fact that the barrier or the dome that covers this planet has been described as so many religions, so many faiths and backgrounds and different cultures, you have to think at one point this filament just may be a giant dome over our planet. And this is one of the most interesting scientific discoveries not talked about. And it's because it deals with the flat earth. And sorry about that. Give me 1 second. I just want to make sure that I'm getting this right. Okay. Now, it was said that not only did seven of his planes disappear by flying into this invisible barrier, there has been no talk of it from the government. The only time they ever spoke on this was when they actually tried to debunk it, which they say that the Nazis who fled the war and succeeded in creating bases in Antarctica and hiding from the view of the general public has perfected the technology of creating these barriers. Now, if Nazis created a force field technology back in the day when we barely had sophisticated sonar technology, we barely had radar. You know what I mean? We just mastered radio frequency. So you got to remember the technological time era we're talking about here. They mastered, apparently, to the government, force field technology. Now let's think about this. They said Nazis had all kind of time machines and stuff like that, and it was debunked and debated. And now they're saying that Nazis had force field technology back in these days. Now, this is the thing with me. Either they're lying about the earth being flat or they're lying about the Nazis having this technology. It's got to be either or. But something amazing has happened in this expedition because it gives us a chance to further look into the situation of the flat earth theory. You know, now the hollow earth theory has been debated widely amongst people. Now that's already been proven that the hollow earth exists. You know what I mean? Science has proven it. There are videos out on that. There's geometric seismic waves that prove the earth cannot be round. That it's actually a flat surface on the top with a dome over it. Um, they had different names for the inner earth, Agartha, Sheol, and Shambhala. We have very interesting theories coming out now, but all of them have been proposed before. Now, this is the interesting thing to me. Up until about the 1950s, it was common for people to question things like this, and it just became a quiet subject out of the blue. And I feel like a lot of things are being hidden from the eye of the people because of the fact that we're not looking anymore. Now, this is a generation where we are in the age of Aquarius. Technology is advancing us. We're constantly moving forward. So for us to come across this information now in the way that they did in the past, there's got to be some truth to this. The consistency of the findings and the generations. These are two different generations completely that have never met each other. These two generations have only met through the words of the past, and they came to the same conclusion about the same things. That's a very interesting thing, I think, in my book. If you go and research Admiral Byrd's flights to the South and North Pole, and we actually have a video out of his expedition, which they recorded while going to Antarctica. I'm going to actually make a actual video on that because I found some interesting artifacts there. During the documentary, some things like I'll give you an example. When they first go to Antarctica after they leave the first island, they go to an area where they're filming these seals. The interesting thing is, as a pan, is something in the background that looks like a shining gold pyramid. Now it sounds crazy, but in Antarctica, I believe they found artifacts such as a gold pyramid and things of that nature, but they won't talk about it. And the fact they're in this documentary, unbeknownst to even the shooter himself, because is something that actually just caught my eye. I don't know if this came from this civilization or possibly the ones who created them. Because apparently now they're saying that the master race or the builders had built these primitive beings that they found there, being the first prototype for Homo sapien. And it's very, very interesting to dissect this case because there's so much involved. I mean, this can go any way possible, with the Nazis, with the possibility of a flat, hollow Earth, and there's just so much out there to study right now. Another interesting fact that a lot of scientists are using as proof that the Earth is hollow is the fact that you have these giant sheets of ice in the middle of a salt ocean that are made of fresh water with no fresh water supplies around. And the only way to get fresh water is from the inside geysers in the earth. So if the geysers in the earth are not being superheated and evaporated before reaching the surface, there must be water in the earth. And this was proposed by science so long ago that back in the I say about 30s, they actually did an experiment where they went out into the ocean and they found near Australia, off the coast of the Shark's Bay, that there is actually a filament between the two waters, where underneath the salt water in the sand, there is actually supplies of fresh water. Kind of makes you think. And I gotta say this again. It makes you wonder just how our Earth and planet was created along with us, And today, I just want to say, stay woke. Do not allow yourself to be trapped into a mindset of thinking that, we may or may not be alone. We are not alone. We were created here. So, with that, I say love, peace, and hair grease. And this is Justinia's Coffee saying stay woke. Love, 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 life, love, 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 life. 280, got your